to power.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this.
Oh man,
It
poop
is
to
what it is.
earn. Here we go, baby. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exclusive Boom Room where we talk about all things boom from separate rooms. This is Sasha with Arcanum Ventures. I'm here with my co founder, Carmelo, and today we are speaking with Valentine Pleser, one of the co founders of Mining DAO, a Bitcoin mining operation that is focused on environmental sustainability and renewable energies. Valentine, welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really good. Calling in from Berlin. Sun is shining. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty awesome.
Thanks so much for calling in, and welcome to the Boom Room. Just for our audience members that are not familiar, we met Valentine in Poland at Next Block Expo in Warsaw, where we learned more about what she was doing. We thought it was really cool. We wanted to bring her on and speak about what they're doing at Green Mining DAO, what their mission is, what their progress has been, and what the future around Bitcoin mining looks like. But before we do that, let's just talk a little bit about you, Valentine. Like, what's your experience within crypto? How did you come to be here, and how did you get involved with this company?
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey, I have to say. I would say I'm a very traditional generalist by background. So I've tried many different things and then went into consulting and coaching, mainly focusing on organizational development. So I've always loved to look at, okay, how can we build organizations that are sustainable, also in the matter of we love continue to working with it, the environment is positively influenced by it. It creates a feeling of community, and this passion for community and innovation I think I've taken throughout my journey. And at some point I was consulting with my co-founder Sasha. So Sasha, the name, but with a C, the German spelling.
So many of us.
Yes, they're all good though.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Sasha
we were
represent.
consulting different projects, and 2018, as we all know, was quite an interesting time in the market. It was pretty crazy. And we just saw some of the projects that had so much potential, but raising funds way too quickly in a crazy manner, not really knowing how to invest that money, where to put it in. And we were just observing that, and we actually kind of created an offering that was a post ICO consulting. So after people have raised money, to just help them because they were
Oh
raising basically
wow.
without showing anything on some of them were not showing on the websites how they're going to actually use that money, which I think now, a couple of years later, that's crazy because people really started doing their due diligence looking back at what happened. And so we saw some of the dangers. And what really took me or pushed me into that direction was actually one of our back then friends, and also one of our starting investors or founding investors, who was interested in pushing forward renewable energy. And the UN back then said, hey, we need more investors also from retail investing into renewable energy. And yeah, and the UN said that, but it's not, I feel like it's so interesting how it's not been really taken by the media a little bit more, or just general interest. And he was interested, just wanted to explore what it could look like to tokenize renewable energy plants. And so we dove into that. My Sasha is really like someone that goes deep down the rabbit hole. I then invested into his idea, also financially. I wanted to explore that, and that's how kind of I got into that space. So it's always been focused more on the tokenization part, renewable energy part, the community drivenness from wanting to maintain the planet as is. Yeah, that's what got me here. And now I'm a
I mean,
co-founder.
tokenization is definitely one way to get people interested, at least nowadays, right? We've seen that happen time and time again, where Oh man, we're just gonna go down like the negativity rabbit hole again, like all of our interviews. But like, how many projects have we seen the past few years that slap a token onto a business that maybe
Yeah.
doesn't need to be there at all? But this is an interesting use case for it. And we spoke with you guys at Green Mining DAO, I think in depth about what you guys are doing and the idea of bringing decentralization and fractional ownership to some of these operations is really cool.
Yeah. And the Bitcoin mining itself brings immediate profitability, or at least the cash flow in when companies want to build out the grid. And in Germany, for example, we have so many renewable energy sources that are actually not connected to the grid yet because there's some bureaucracy behind it, or they're overproducing for the current needs in the market. So to all the Germans that are hearing it, if you have an energy power plant that is producing too much, let us know. We're happy to support you just to, yeah, consult and just bringing a few miners in. Even though that's not our main business, we're not focusing on that. Of course, because I live in Germany, I'd love to see more of that. I was invited recently by one of the most, let's say, traditional parties, and they wanted to hear about what we could or how we could use Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining on the path to renewable energy and building out the grid, which I thought was super interesting. Yeah, it's kicking off.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, so give our listeners a little bit of an idea, like the 2 minute elevator pitch. What is Green Mining DAO? I mean, we've got green, we've got Bitcoin, we've got renewable energy. How does this all fit together? What have you guys worked on so far?
I would say that Green Mining DAO is an ecosystem for investors that are interested to really reap the benefits, and especially the financial benefits of Bitcoin mining, because they're really good. That's also one of the parts where I think people are attracted to most in the beginning. The addition is that an investor doesn't have to do anything. They don't have to take the risk of understanding when to buy the best miners and when to sell the Bitcoin so you can pay the energy bill. All of that we take off because that's our expertise. And on the other hand, it's an ability to really keep on wearing our white vest and say, hey, I'm investing into something that's not negatively influencing the planet, but actually pushing forward innovation in terms of how we can maintain or even better the situation of our beautiful planet.
That was
Yeah.
really,
So
really brilliantly put.
It was very eloquent.
Actually, I remember your speaking of, you gave an amazing talk at Next Block in Warsaw, and one of the things that stuck out to me first was you mentioned your mother buying Bitcoin below market price, and I love the idea of that, because imagining my own parents buying Bitcoin or figuring out how to buy it, or setting up a mining rig like you said, which most people don't know how to do and don't want to learn how to do. So, do you see that as like a really impactful message? Like, what does the core demographic for your investors look like?
not so middle-aged female as it could be.
Yes, not yet.
I would say so we have 100 investors currently, a little bit
Okay.
more than 100 investors. And from what I can tell who they are, I'm talking to every single one of, or talk to every single one of them. We have specific core personas. I would say the strongest one is usually someone that is already a serial entrepreneur or a serial investor. Why? Because we are currently in the private rounds. We always do 2 private rounds and then a public round. And the private round is obviously engaged a little bit more information, because we have to inform people about everything, all the risks. So it needs someone that can read through these papers and understand the risk of investing. And usually that's someone that puts in between 25 and 200,000 euros, and they've put in that sum already somewhere else. And that demographic, I would say, is usually tends to be male, and also yeah, for us, because we're Germans, I think it's just very focused on German speaking markets.
Hmm.
Um, because the founders, because we are German, and people mostly come in through seeing us speaking on stage or an article. And then the second biggest demographic, or the persona, is currently a 10 to 20 ticket investor that wants to get into that return on invest, and also wants to learn a little bit more about what's going on in the market. So it's interesting to see that a lot of people in that range are interested to say, hey, I want my foot in there. I want to be part of that movement. I want to be part of, seeing, okay, that's an amazing return on invest. But also green, let me be part of that. I want to say in 5 years, I was an investor here,
Mm.
and look where that got me. So that's kind of the typical persona at the moment.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I know a lot of people that are, even people in the industry, that say, "Oh, it's too late. You can't make money off Bitcoin. Like, how much higher can it actually go?" But this is an interesting way to get exposure to Bitcoin without just going on an exchange and buying it. So I think eventually you'll probably find more traction with people that want to not miss that train. And I think there's people even investing in IPOs now for mining companies, but none that I've seen that are doing sustainable renewable energy for it.
Well, it's interesting because when we spoke, you had mentioned the progress you guys had made in at least launching that first big mining rig in South America, I believe, and you were in the process of launching another one. So it's funny when you think about like all these yield earning opportunities across different sort of protocols, where you can purchase Bitcoin, or maybe you can earn some yield, or you can invest into like a larger institution that has a mining operation. This is more of a smaller company, and Green Mining DAO is almost like a family run business where you guys are looking very carefully at overhead costs. You're strategically planning where to launch these mining rigs. You're working with local authorities and figuring out the most compliant ways and safest ways to do this. And so, in a way, you're very, very much invested in the returns of your investors, more so than a large company that's, for all intents and purposes, faceless to some of their investors. So tell us a bit about like that expansion into South America, and how that journey's been as far as launching these actual mining sites and then expanding into some other countries or locations.
Yeah, thank you for that analysis also. On
You're
business.
very
Yeah.
welcome.
um, we maybe also to take a step back of how we got there. We actually took our own money first and started mining ourselves with that money as a smaller investor group. And we wanted to explore what happens, what we not know. We got some Bitcoin miners that mined like for the past 5 to 7 years on board, and wanted to really see, okay, what are the pros and cons of mining in general, and what are potential, how do you say, blind spots that we might have. And that was very interesting for us, and very important, I think, because it is essentially we are dealing with other people's money, and I feel like we need to have the best preparation for that, and that is why we choose our locations so carefully. So we actually had, after mining ourselves, we then, to make this more accessible to retail in general, we then analyzed 180 countries in terms of their Bitcoin and crypto regulations, in terms of their security for foreign investments, in terms of the access for talent, that is specific to mining. Because if you have a mining site far away, you need to get people there to work. Even though it's a low overhead in general, it still we need the access to people that want to, that have our own desire for 100% uptime. Yeah, it's we don't want
Absolutely.
95, we don't want 96, we want 100%. And that means, we're going to push for that, and we have our daily meetings for that. And if one single machine is off, that means that's not good enough for us. And that's a certain culture that, of course, that we want to have with everyone that we work with, and is important for us. When we decided for Paraguay, one of the main reasons was their abundance of hydro energy. It's just so unique to have a grid that is 100% powered by hydro energy. I think,
Wow.
yeah, I was amazed by that. There's no other source but hydro because there's so much of it. And that's also why I think South America or in well, mostly South America is so interesting in terms of growth and development. There's a strong hunger to develop further, I feel, and also to use the amazing resources that the earth gave that continent also into something that yeah, everyone has a positive benefit from. And in terms of Paraguay itself, they cannot use all of their energy actually. So they have they sell off their own energy that they are producing together in Itaipu with Brazil,
Hmm.
because they cannot use it yet because they don't have that economy to use that amount of energy. So I see it as a benefit for miners to be there, and also for us to be there if we can make a positive change in that sense. And we do see energy development as something positive and development. We cannot essentially um, operate people in a hospital if we don't have light, and we cannot save lives, and we cannot. So I think energy is always development. And
Mhm.
I already in the last 2 years that we've been mining in Paraguay, that's when we started our first mine in Paraguay. So GM1, we have. It's a very boring way to actually GM1, GM2, and now GM3. But hey, it helps us internally and externally in terms of communication. Otherwise, people just, yeah, it's confusing if we always talk about the location specifically in Paraguay. Um, but yeah, we are now at GM3. And since we actually met in Poland, things have just been extremely exciting. This year is already crazy exciting, but since then it's been amazing because GM3 is our newest facility that we raise in 3 rounds, as I explained before. And we closed the first round right after I met you guys. We closed the first round in the holding company, which is Green Mining DAO, and Green Mine 3 is a daughter company, as a subsidiary in English, subsidiary.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the one.
In German, we say a daughter organization,
Oh
so
yeah.
child.
Daughter organization.
So I
Interesting.
always want to say that in English. Um, and that will be then 100% tokenized. And as you explained before, for us, or I think the big difference from us to others is that we maintain shareholders. So we stay shareholders. We don't completely sell that product off, but our interest is for this to become a highly profitable and highly efficient organization, because we only get money and funds back if the profit is paid out in dividends. So our way to gain from that organization is it running really well and reaping many profits, and then these
Mhm.
are coming back to the Green Mining DAO and investors and ecosystem.
Yeah, in a way, you guys are almost investors in your own company. It's really interesting about Paraguay, and the entire electrical infrastructure is what you might refer to as renewable. Sounds like Paraguay is Bitcoin mining country. Y'all better get your pickaxes. But yeah, it's really cool because it's something that I didn't know personally until you had mentioned it when we first met. And so it sounds like we know that there's a lot of progress in South America in regulations and compliance around cryptocurrency and blockchain infrastructure. Is this something that you're also seeing unfolding in Paraguay?
Yes, definitely. And we're in the middle of it, participating in it basically, because the issue actually comes from stealing energy. which has happened. So in Paraguay, it's been the case that, especially in the past few months, the regulators found several mines that were actually stealing from the grid, which is something that I think is, I don't know, I've never heard of that in Germany, or that it's possible,
Wow.
but there it is. And this is why the regulators then pushed for actually, first saying Bitcoin mining is bad, but then it got a super strong pushback. Of course, this made the news that, Paraguay is about to ban Bitcoin mining, which actually, was like a 5-minute paper on someone's table. No, it was a little bit more, but essentially there was such a strong pushback from Bitcoin miners in Paraguay, saying, "Hey guys, like this is a huge industry. Better think about pushing out a huge industry that is bringing people, funds, tourism, business travel to Paraguay." And that's why there's a complete turnaround, actually. And we do believe that a positive or a regulation and transparency is something that we are fighting for, definitely. And I'm seeing that development in Paraguay. Sasha is a little bit more in Paraguay itself. He's the one that's mostly traveling. He's also the one who is even stronger, talented, way stronger, talented that in operations and mining. So that's completely his focus. Also in terms of legal innovation, which in our case is also an interesting part, because we are a Swiss-based company. All of our companies are Swiss-based, and they are AGs. We are very impressed with the Swiss regulations in terms of how quickly they have developed so far. It's very progressive. And even though in Germany and other countries we see the development coming up, it's still for us a good choice to have that combination of working with Paraguay on site, but working with, or our investors directly invest in a Swiss company, because it gives a certain security that is for our European investors easily understandable.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
a lot of sense.
absolutely.
Do you have a lot of, well, you say there's a lot of miners in Paraguay, and I also wanted to ask, do you think, what's the likelihood of the government getting in on the action eventually? Because if they have a massive amount of renewable energy, like it makes sense for them to operate their own facilities eventually, right?
I think that would be an amazing development, definitely. There is that trend already, let's say it that way. Um, and we would be highly interested to also work together with Paraguay itself on that. Um, I think it's more on a partnership level. I don't currently,
Mhm.
from what I understand, I don't see them wanting to develop the skill of Bitcoin mining itself and like employ people to do it, but rather work with partners and then invest Paraguay's money maybe into that, on building that out. I could see that, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
That'd
I
be
mean,
incredible.
it sounds like it's a boon for local economies. It's weird because we call it mining, but it kind of is like mining in a sense that you have more decentralization. You have a new revenue stream opening up for countries that traditionally don't have a lot of real estate or natural resources, and it's all of a sudden a new natural resource. Like you said, you're transferring hydroelectric power into this thing that you can collect pools of wealth in a country like Paraguay. I think that's really cool, and it's a nice narrative too. And I wanted to ask you because I was going to ask before why you chose Paraguay, but I didn't realize you had a comprehensive 180 country list. So I was going to ask, was there any other countries that you identified as good possible targets aside from Paraguay? And like, I mean, I imagine some of them are in Latin America or South America.
That, like, I just come from an offsite with the team in Scotland,
Yep.
where we got the team together and we just did our phase, which is our function and accountability chart.
Hmm.
And for us, sourcing deals is extremely important, and it's something we do every single day. So we every day we look, where can we find new energy that is cheap, that is renewable, that it has a certain level of security around it, accessible for us. So it's a daily business thing actually for us.
Hmm.
So we give it an extra specific role and KPI in the business once again, because long term this is going to make us grow. We want the best sites. So in terms of other countries, I can say that there's many different ones that are interesting, especially right now in the market. Uh, some of them are in Europe,
Hmm.
more in the southern Europe, maybe not that far from where you are currently, Carmelo. Others are in Eastern Africa,
Okay.
which is currently being explored a lot. We have some pretty good and interesting opportunities there. Um, I haven't, if I think about it, Asia hasn't been, or especially like Eastern Asia hasn't been on the map for us yet.
Hmm.
It would be so complicated for us to fly back and forth. I mean, Jesus, from Paraguay to Africa already, but then to Asia, let's see. No. So we have a very clear roadmap. Paraguay is 1, 2, 3 in terms of facilities. We were already asked our investors because we had a pretty good deal in another country for this one. And we decided to go for Paraguay also in terms of economies of scale. Right
Hmm.
now, it just makes sense with 3 facilities. And for the investors, they see the difference in terms of traveling and in terms of the local economy, that it makes sense to do this in one country where all the facilities are.
Mm.
Um, so the GM3 investors, and we already have 2 or 3 opportunities for GM4 and GM5, and we're going to be on 3 different continents by 2025.
Wow.
Nice.
By next year.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah, end
You're
of
moving
next
very
year.
fast. You know, this
Yeah.
this is really interesting because I imagine there's a lot of different factors that affect the overhead and the electricity costs, and there's always these market fluctuations, and then adding on to that the volatility of Bitcoin. And so give us a, if you can, maybe give us a bit of a comparison how, using renewable energy for Bitcoin mining might differ on the financial side from traditional mining organizations. I imagine that there's a lot of benefits to what you're doing, because you're talking about, actively marketing, buy Bitcoin below market price, which is like in this incredible tagline, right? But you guys are able to enter potentially at a better price point. And then how might that kind of, be affected by market fluctuations in electricity prices, or are those prices more stable when it comes to renewable energies?
Regarding renewable energy sources, the price, and non-renewable energy sources. So currently, let's say you can get in Texas, you can get coal. I don't know. Let's say the US, you can get coal for 2 cents. We like to work, or currently work, mostly with 4 to 5.7 cents. That's per kilowatt hour USD cents.
Hmm.
So yes, that is competition. Um, what we do really well is to look for the best deals, and I elaborated a bit on that already. And our target is always to produce 30% cheaper than Bitcoin is sold for
Hmm.
on exchanges. So that's always our margin that we want to work with, and that we want to also pass on, because essentially we are, like you said before, Sasha, we are investors as well. So we want the return on invest on the opportunity that we have and that we built out and that we are responsible for. But one of the significant differences is that Bitcoin is the hardest money in the world, and That's what we're working with. Instead of inflating and devaluating fiat money, we believe in Bitcoin, and that's something that we will continue to do. And in terms of comparing that to non-renewable energy sources, what we do well as well is just in terms of how we choose our sources and then also the mining equipment. So what we do to maintain long term is that we work with depreciation. And that's what in the past we could learn from others, even though they had great sources of energy that were cheap, and which is the biggest factor in a Bitcoin mining operation. And they still over leveraged. And that's something we don't do. We are very particular in terms of how we choose our hardware and when we buy it, at what time, and not leveraging it in a certain way, but rather really making sure that we can maintain the security at all times for our investors and essentially ourselves. And that's been something that we saw other operators that were building quick and dirty not do. And it's so interesting. I mean, essentially, depreciation is like a one-on-one, a 101, as you say in the US, 101 of business, right?
Yep.
When you have big assets and big capex. And that's what a lot of operations don't do. And so when the Bitcoin price went down, they struggle actually to keep it up. They struggle to maintain the same hash rate, or with the growing hash rate, they struggle to maintain with the difficulty. And that's a great time for us then to buy secondhand machines from people that aren't investing their money well.
Absolutely.
Which we've already done. So that's also like a hack that we do, which procurement is good or important for us. Sourcing good deals. Yesterday, we signed a very big deal, but that's because we've now become so interesting for producers themselves, because we're now big enough, and now we can be on that side of not having to look for secondhand machines or so from others that maybe have gone bankrupt or didn't survive a cash flow in bear market. And that's interesting now because, of course, ordering that amount of miners fully hydro cooled is something completely different, because now not only do we have a renewable energy source, but we're also cooling with hydro and can therefore be even more efficient. So we want to grow faster than our competitors in terms of growth of hash rate, but also in terms of efficiency. And essentially our goal is, of every 1,000 Bitcoin being produced, we want to have and mine one. So we now have that motto in the team: 1 out of 1,000.
It's a good goal to have.
It's a massive goal.
I wanted to ask too, real quick, because this is obviously another expense, but how does security factor in? Because I know that you chose Paraguay because it's a stable, safe place. There's other countries that wouldn't fit the bill for that, but do you see that as like a major cost for the business, depending on where you set up shop?
For sure. As a cost, I wouldn't necessarily say, but importance, yes. Why? Because it's also an often asked question.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I could not sleep if I didn't know the machines were not safe. Honestly, and I want to sleep well. I need that. If I'm a co-founder, I need to be able to sleep well, because I need to make good decisions, right? So yes, security is important. That's why, for example, it's interesting for us to be in a location where other Bitcoin miners are, because especially with bigger ones, they have a whole other investment compared to us. And of course, they want to make sure that they're in a safe location. So that's another trick that we saw in an area where most jobs are created from Bitcoin miners. The community will make sure that the Bitcoin miners operation is safe. And that's just such an amazing human factor. And people are going to see if someone drives off in the middle of the night, and then there's alarms going on with like trying to get 200 miners on the board. So that kind of like theft security is definitely something that's very important for me. And in terms of our product portfolio, essentially we want to, if we look at like an Airbnb, you have different choices always in terms of price and in terms of what you get for that price. It's not an investment tool, but we kind of want people or retail investors to be able to look at different locations and select it by their own strategy for investment. And some people, they like to not sleep expensive and just choose, I don't know, an Airbnb far out, but where they pay a low price and they don't need to have a certain look. And others are want something to be really at the city center and totally secure and 5-star, and they want to pay a higher price for that.
It's really interesting that you're mentioning there seems to be a push for these locations that offer like certain advantages when it comes to Bitcoin mining operation. You've got these larger companies that are moving to these areas. They're setting up shop. You guys are, essentially piggybacking on some of the benefits. You've got this entire economy of cryptocurrency miners that are building infrastructure, that are providing jobs, and they're boosting the economy in such a weird way. Like no one would think that this is a thing, but it's becoming a thing. And so it's really interesting that like Paraguay is just one location where all of the stars kind of align for Bitcoin mining. And you guys have found like a very strong financial future there. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what that financial future kind of looks like for your different stakeholders and investors. You talked a bit about how you've got investors that can enter at $25 or even $200,000. So how do people get involved in this? Like what do you guys look for as far as investors go, or is it open to anyone? This seems to be like an opportunity that many people don't really have on their table normally when it comes to buying Bitcoin. A lot of people falsely assume they need to own one or none, but this allows anyone to get in the door. So how do people get involved with Green Mining DAO?
Beautifully phrased. Um, it is true that Bitcoin mining investments was hard to access. And that's basically our vision. We want anyone to be able to access the benefits, reap the benefits of Bitcoin mining and the amazing returns that it is creating. And the accessibility was difficult, especially for a $1,000 investor so far. You can buy shares of even sustainable Bitcoin mining operations. However, the big difference is the dividend payment. It's not a passive income stream. It's a productive asset, yes, but it's not productive in terms of it's growing. It's a growing asset, but we create a productive asset, and that's what makes it special. So some people are very focused on dividend payments, and others are focused on the growth of an asset itself. For us, every operation will have a certain process, and the first 2 phases, it is important for us to select the investors so they apply. So we've never ever advertised something because we can't speak directly to a certain market because of regulation, and we wanted to do everything perfectly right. It is important for us. So people can actually go to the website and fill out a 1-minute type form, and we will then quickly speak to them and make sure that they read the documents and understand them. And then they can become an investor from 5,000 euros on. So that's always this first and second round. The earlier you start, the lower the share price. the later the stage. So right now we signed a 6 megawatt deal. I ordered the first batch of miners. We already started construction. The first million is in. So now, of course, the risk is lower. So now the share price goes a little bit up. We are now working for public rounds together with a partner so that we are fully financially regulated. So, for example, in Germany, we are selling the shares over a platform that is then BaFin regulated, and the BaFin is the German version of the SEC. We already have a non-action letter in Switzerland, so we can speak to Swiss investors directly. And now, over that platform, anyone can actually buy directly for a minimum of around 100 euros. You can directly invest and buy shares over the platform with your credit card.
Wow. So you need to let us know when GM4 is going to be ready. I think we need to have that discussion.
Definitely, yes. It's already. I have a meeting tomorrow, so it might already be in the kickoff.
It's funny how
I'll tell you
many
what.
our podcasts they turn into investment sessions, and
Yeah.
that happens quite often, actually.
You know, people are becoming more receptive to these like stable investments after just being burned constantly by meme coins and
Yeah.
Yeah.
scams and things like that, and we're starting to see that within the market as investors. So it's this, you guys are in a fantastic position right now.
Thank you. We
You're
notice.
very welcome.
We don't have so much time left, and I have like a billion questions. I think Sasha has a billion too, but I wanted to ask real quick: have you seen what's like the weirdest renewable energy you've seen for mining? Like, we've obviously seen hydroelectric. I think I've seen thermal energy in like
Oh wow.
Northern Europe, but have you seen any weird ones? Are you exploring any alternative forms of renewable energy right now?
I am in a community called Women for Climate Tech. So I see basically, yeah,
Everything.
all European innovations for renewable energy. One of them having the name and being what the name is, Fit to Power.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this.
Oh man,
It
poop
is
to
what it is.
earn. Here we go, baby.
So I would say that's my number one for weird sources. Let's
That's
say it this way.
probably the best answer I could have expected.
Oh man, that made my week, maybe my month. You know, we've got time for one more question, Valentine, and I want to ask you about something that came up when we first met, the mangoes. So tell us about, like, you guys are thinking creatively about renewable energy, sustainability, and recycling energy. Tell us about the mangoes.
The mangoes, Bitcoin mango, the mango tango. Okay, so as a functionality, this is for us heat reuse. Why? Because we want to make everything as efficient as possible. If we use the heat that comes out of the mining operation for something else, we decrease the cost of mining, which is, of course, the financial part. But the more sexy part about it, depending on what you find sexy, is that you can use whatever is in the local community and dry it. So for us, and in Paraguay, this is mango. Mango is basically, there's an abundance of mango. And we are actually, I'll say this the way Sasha would say it. We are proud that we are the first Bitcoin miner that has reused or that has created and reused heat to dry fruits. So we are the first ones that have done exactly that, and created a brand out of that. Basically, we support the development locally by employing people and with a partner that collect the mangoes and select the mangoes and then wash the mangoes and cut the mangoes. And Sasha has developed a drying oven that is created as efficient as possible. Of course, we always first use it um, on our own operation to then now create a even better version for GM3, because we've now learned from what we can make even more efficient. So basically, Bitcoin mango is a dried mango Bitcoin mango is dried from Bitcoin mining heat, which has been filtered. Because this question comes very often. It does not smell or taste like Bitcoin, but it is the sweetest taste of financial freedom.
Oh my goodness.
It's good marketing.
Those words. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? The mangoes, they were delicious. Maybe it's a coincidence that both Bitcoin and mangoes are both orange. But
Haha!
we've got to wrap it up. Valentine, before we do, we're going to ask you a question that we ask every one of our guests on the Boom Room. And the rules are simple. You can answer anything, person, place, company, or thing, except for yourself or your own company. What in crypto are you most bullish on right now?
And before you do that, everybody like and subscribe and do all the things. And please check the show notes below to see everything that we have been working on and that Valentine's working on with her amazing companies. So sorry to interrupt there. Had to jump in.
That was the suspense. So much suspense.
Yeah, suspense building.
Oh yeah, here we go.
It's thinking time for me. Okay,
Oh, and
I
you
am.
can't say Bitcoin either. That would be such a cop
Oh
out. No, no
no.
Bitcoin.
Can I say bull run after halving?
Oh,
Okay,
oh,
fine.
yeah, I guess so.
Um, I am very bullish on the amazing other utilization innovations that will come up from other miners.
Hmm.
I think this is something that, I mean, saunas. There are
Ooh.
entire villages in the Nordics being heated. Uh, Industries having heat in the winter. I don't know. This is really, I'm very bullish on exactly that, because I think there's some amazing thinking minds in our industry that are inspiring each other. And if you want to learn more about the debunking myth of Bitcoin being bad for the environment, I also recommend, because you can see some of these examples, Dirty Coin, the movie,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
has premiered 4 months ago, and it's a documentary on Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, we
Wow.
gotta
I
include all of those in the show notes. I gotta watch them too.
I didn't realize how bullish I am on Bitcoin saunas until just now.
Bitcoin Banya.
Valentine, thank you so much for taking the time and hopping on to speak about Green Mining DAO. Again, thank you to all of our audience members and listeners. Make sure you tap that like button, stick around, throw us a subscribe. We've got some more fun videos and interviews coming up soon. And if you're interested at all in Valentine, what she's doing with Green Mining DAO, and what the company's mission is, make sure you check the link in the show notes. Valentine, it's a pleasure as always. Great seeing you and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. You guys are amazing. Keep on rocking, rock and roll.
No, you're amazing. Ciao, y'all.
Bye.